play a card game?
Poker?
Nah, we don't have people.
Go fish?
It's a little old.
War?
I was in the war.
What war were you in?
The Great War. World War One, to be exact. You see, this was the war fought in the trenches over in Europe, back when I was still a member of Great Britain. I remember it like it was just yesterday. They were pretty nice, though. I was welcomed fairly warmly. Training was very intense when we arrived in West Flanders. They had me doing all kinds of jumpy things on the log, shooting my gun. There was barbed wire, sandbags, you know. We had all of our equipment. Artillery, tanks, machine guns and flamethrowers to go around. I didn't realize our toilets would just be in the open. It kind of smells in the trenches. I remember having to squat down and take a deuce, and then 5 minutes later go back to shooting people. Food was not appetizing, to say the least. Yes, they gave you these little packets of meat. Tasted like rotten skunk flesh. Very bad indeed. No man's land was truly that of the name. This harsh environment belonged to nobody but the dead who inhabit it. The weather had been a little different around here. Snow had already fallen down. Quite cold, to say the least, but at least I brought my gloves. Well, the sleeping situation was far from ideal. You see, we had to sleep in these old run-down bunkers within the trenches made of rotten wood. There were rats crawling all around the floor, and there were holes in the uncomfortable cots we slept on, and my toes were frozen. It was darn cold outside. I really didn't sleep too much while I was in the war, but I was able to manage at least a couple hours of sleep every night. We started trench warfare, the art of fighting out of dug trenches. At this time in the war, everybody was trying to defend the English Channel from the Germans. This was the Battle of Ypres, my first and final endeavor in the Great War. Well, this took place mostly during the cold, but when it wasn't quite cold enough to snow, the heavy rain turned all the roads into mud, making it impossible to go anywhere in vehicles or cover any ground over no man's land whatsoever. 2 weeks after we had arrived at the compound, I had gotten a bad case of trench foot from standing in the poopy water day in, day out. It was not fun. My foot still is aching to this day from that horrible feeling of liquid feces between my various toes. I do not miss the feeling. Very scary place indeed, the trenches were. Disease-ridden, like malaria and the flu. Everywhere you look, someone was either dead or sick. So many piles of dead bodies all around. I myself was coughing up a storm and almost died. The war was a depressing time, however. I once had one of my best friends die right beside me. Name was Cedric Bigelow, a man from Wales. We were in the middle of a conflict, one that seemed to happen every other day, and the Germans were opening fire upon us. Cedric got up to fire, took a bullet right to the head. I had to carry on fighting, so I picked up his weapon and shot right back at the Germans. After the fighting, the Germans, they started to charge. One man up the trench. He ended up shooting me in the leg, which led me to falling over, but I quickly grabbed my gun and shot at him back. After the battle, I had wounds all over my body. I was shot in the leg, and I got some infections from it. I still remember that day I was shot in the leg by another man. Just a bloody mess of barbed wire, dead bodies, and poopy water.